Hello everyone, welcome to this channel. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through how we can use amazing PnP control in SharePoint Framework web part. What I will cover is why do we need a file picker control which is available, how we can let users select file from the different sources, and then I will also show you how to use that selected file and store that file into one of the SharePoint document library. People who doesn't know what is basically PnP React controls, I have a separate video where I have given some sessions around that. I'm going to put the link in the description. So feel free to watch it to understand why it is important for us to use PnP React controls in our SPFX development to basically fast the development lifecycle, because there are so many reusable controls which are available. So today we are going to talk about file picker control. Before we jump into the code, uh, let's understand the use case, right? For example, you are creating a custom SPFX web part. Now, with this custom SPFX web part, what do you want to do is you are wanted to give user a functionality to upload a file. Now, to upload a file, generally we can use an HTML file picker control from where user would be able to browse the file from their local machine, and once they select it, you can use the file content and upload it to your targeted destination. Basically, it can be SharePoint, blob, depending on different use cases you have, right? Now consider that you want to give an functionality wherein user doesn't just need to upload it from their local drive or their local machine, but there are different sources which are available. Now, if some of the sources, if you can consider, would be that you wanted to allow them to do a web search by using the Bing Cognitive Web Service, so that they can basically search for any images which are there in the internet, and then they can allow user to select that file. You wanted to allow user to select file from their OneDrive. You want user to select file from any of the SharePoint document library, and local drives, and then also multiple files from the local drives, and you wanted to do it by pasting a link to the document. Now in this case, if you would have to build all this functionality on your own, think about it, the kind of code you would have to write, the kind of scenarios you would have to handle, from where you would be able to get data, show the data to the user based on their current Microsoft 365 environment like SharePoint document library, OneDrive, etc., and then give them a way to view that file, and then the user would be able to select that file. Now using the file picker control, it is going to allow us to browse and select that file very much easier. And if you go to the home page of the landing page of the file picker control, here you can see this is kind of the experience of the control, and there are different types of displays which are available also, wherein you can change different types of displays between list view, compact list, and tiles view. There is also breadcrumb support, so where you can people can basically go to different sources, and then how the usage guidelines. Okay, we will see the usage guidelines because that is easier to show how you can basically kind of use this control in your SPFX web part. Okay, so let's jump into the code and see how this is going to work. So what I have right now is basically a file in sample hello world SPFX web part, where I have installed the PnP React control library. Now to install a PnP control library, it is easier. What you need to do is you need to just install one package as part of your npm library, which is called as spfx-controls-react. I has also installed the PnP JS library because I also wanted to show you how basically we can use this to upload the file into one of the SharePoint document library as soon as the user selects the file. Okay, so now first to put the control, the file picker control. Obviously, because this is a front-end control, a React control, what you need to do is you need to add it into your React file. So go to your main React control file. In my case, it is file picker pnp control.tsx, and I have added this line. Now from where I did got it, what you can do is there are kind of a good how to use controls guidelines. First thing is you need to put, after you have installed the PnP React control dependency library, then you need to use the import statement, and then you need to use this in your code. So if we go here, I have the import statement which is added, and then I have added the control here. I have not used any Bing keys or anything to be added. But what this will do is, based on this, basically it is going to add that control, file picker control, into our page. Now there's also an example of what you can do on basically kind of save handlers. This example is going to give you about downloading the file. I have extended this to show you that how you can use the content of the file and then you can upload into SharePoint document library by using PnP JS. Okay, so we have added the control, which is good. And we have also added this .on file picker. I will show you in a moment what this will do, and also how to initialize PnP JS, etc. But let's quickly see the demo. So for example, I have already the Gulf serve running, and I'm just going to open the workbench and add the web part. Okay, so I have this web part. This is how the web part looks. I don't have any configuration property which I'm not using, but this is how the web part looks. And in this web part, we have just the file control, file upload control, right? So eventually, if you see here, this is my heading, and the control is this much, a simple icon. Now, if you go here, if you see, this is what basically is a kind of loading or showing that icon, which is file upload control icon. You can put it, you can add it as in the as a button, or depending on what kind of UI you need, you can add it. But that file picker control has to be there, which needs to be basically clicked on it, right? Second thing is, it is important that we need to pass the context. Now, why this is important? Because this is a self-sufficient control wherein, based on the current logged in user, it would go and bring certain data for based on the logged in user, like recent files, the SharePoint document library on which they have access, the OneDrive on which they have access. We need to pass this context so that the file picker control can automatically make the API calls, and based on the current logged in user, it would be able to send the data, show the data to the user. Okay, now this is a simple example of how you can basically kind of pass the context, but the context needs to be passed from the property.ts file, right? So if you come here, by default you won't have this context being passed to your React control. So what you can do is, you can basically add a new property to your control and to your React component, which would be context, and you can just pass this context here. And then when you are in your React component, you can just use this dot context to basically pass the context, so that all the automatic graph API calls or REST API calls which is supposed to make, it will basically use this to make that call. Okay, now I have the control. So if I click on this, I'm going to get this wonderful UI which you are seeing right now, right? And this is what I was talking about, that based on the current logged in user, it is going to show you the recent document. So has automatically made an API call to Graph API to get this data. Then there is stock images which you can get it from the internet, which is being searched basically. Then there's web search also, which is available, powered by Bing. Then from here you would be able to browse the OneDrive file of the current logged in user. You can go to the site. By default it will go to the demo site, from where you would be able to, wherever the current this thing is running, from where current context the web part is running, it is going to browse that, and then from there you would be able to basically go and select this. If you want to directly use from a link, you can put a link to the file from OneDrive and SharePoint. Then it is going to use that to basically also get the content. And then of course there is a local file from where you can browse the local content. And then there is a multiple local files where you can basically select multiple files which can be uploaded at once. So in this example, let me do one thing. What I will do is, I will basically use one of the default image, which is a recent image, and I am going to say open. Now, based on my current logic, what I am doing is, as soon as the user selects the file, I am using PnP JS to upload this file into one of the document library. So you can see that it has shown file uploaded successfully. We will see the code in a minute, but let's go to the targeted document library, where basically this files are uploaded. So if I go to my demo site, if I go to site content, And if I go to demo documents, this is where the file is getting uploaded. And here if you see, there would be something called as, yeah, a minute ago, which is report default one image. This is the file which basically I had selected, and what it did is it has selected the file and then it has uploaded to the document library. Now let us see how the file upload code works. Okay, so as I was saying, first and foremost thing is I'm using PnP JS to basically kind of, import or to use the file upload functionality, because that is easier to use. So first thing is we are initializing the PnP JS by passing the context and getting the SP object through which we would be able to call all the APIs which is available within PnP JS itself. Okay. Then, as I was saying that we get two events which are basically very important even for a file picker control, which is on change and on save. Now, in this case, on save is basically the event which would be captured, wherein when the user selects the file, that on save event was going to be triggered, and that is where basically we wanted to do this. So yeah, on save is where the user is done selecting the file, and on change is where the user is changing the selection of the file. Now, the difference here is that the selection changing means you are selecting one file and then you are selecting another file. That is when the on change event would happen. So depending on how do you want to handle your on save, based on that you can basically do it. Now in this case, what we are doing is we have an event handler, which is basically on picker save, and then what we are doing is we are checking whether the file results has more than one file. If the more than one files, if the files are selected or not, then we are getting this file content. Now this is important. Now if you see here, by default what we get is we basically get an array of the files which the user has selected, because remember you can select multiple files also. So for each file what we are doing is we are basically getting the content of the file, we are getting the file name, and then we are using PnP JS to basically upload the file. Now to upload the file, I am using simple method like get folder by the server relative path, because I know I wanted to store it into this document library, and then I'm saying files.add using path and passing the file name, file content, and overwrite parameter address true. So this is how a typically PnP JS basically works to, where through which you would be able to upload the files, etc. And then I'm just alerting it, and that is how the file basically which gets selected is getting uploaded to a SharePoint document library. So yes, that's it from today's. What we have seen today is how you can use a simple file picker control demo with a simple upload functions, which gives basically users and flexible and rich file selection experience directly within our SharePoint framework web part. Try this, customize with the filters, multiple selections and icons, and then you can basically kind of use this kind of control for the faster development in your SPFX development lifecycle. Thank you, everyone.